continuing with list of principal political perception, my principal political perception, principle 11, rather finding, political design of hell, cleaning and heaven, not of Dante Alighieri's, but actually deployed on earth, used as actual political design on earth, where hell is Middle East, cleaning or Renaissance Europe, and heaven Westlands. Today's result of such polarization is that the so-called heaven lands have ended with holding extremely polarizing and spending-oriented cultural and inevitably socio-political platforms where material and opportunity-driven aspirations prevail above any other. The cleaning, in fact, ancient territories in times of their peak are today ranking from servants in very low salaries and living standards to financial slaves, with palette of people, as for example myself, categorized as human version of volcano, rain, thunder, or as something more permanent as river or even mountain, which are all references to slavery actually, as are taking away the humane status from me. Hell lands are experiencing extremes either in terms of suffer or in terms of cultural build, while being formatted as extremely oppressive regimes with extreme wealth polarization, making them easier to be controlled. These words themselves as very much phrased. Fact is that management of territories with very obsolete cultural setting is challenged event, and no one would like to see that region opened just like that. However, making them further departing from planetary standards would look more as we are building different planetary sensations on the planet, including therefore depicting in this case the concept of how it feels to live in hell. We find the entire planet locked therefore still very much on that stage as some kind of theatrical scenario, yet clearly not created in Hollywood but directly connected to creation of three main religions after Buddhism, that is Muslim, Orthodox and Catholic, which would be respectively deploying the above described polarizations on actual geographic lands rather than imaginary as described or presumed Dante Alighieri's trilogy. Principle 12. Finding 12. The concept of secret societies, where very little development is happening in terms of cultural and ideological settings. However, the phenomenon of secret societies has its own very comprehensive cultural and political structure that will require a suitable level of consideration and perspective taken within evolving generational standards as a matter of time in which we live. They also withhold historical heritage dimension, where on one side, as a result of their presence as order, certain matters has been preserved and protected. Today, the entire phenomenon can be defended from such perspective of given historical significance, where I would implement my work as matter of updating of such historical heritage structures that I would still say important as structural platform to any monarchy-related temple DNA protocol, including the element of secrecy that is often required as matter of security function. However, equally as on the stages of monarchy, only real functioning under such nomenclature can bring the contemporary recovery of such titles and closely related orders accordingly, and that would require much more specific and precise approaches. The future would be expected to walk after the present, and I'm very sure there will be enough promise for decent and honorable work for our kids on this planet rather than to feel that they are excess on something or something like that. No one should make any kids to feel like that on this planet. And here you already have made a number one mistake. Clearly in ambition to declare monarchy of earth all on your Western account. And that now has become main problem, apart of the fact that you have planned to deliver that in form of global socialism. And now, do you know how they are going to fight me on my fear from that primitive socialism, which I'm going to call prime socialism from now on? They're serving me this crazy capitalism that has lost any compass or who and what should be walking first on this planet. Well, I certainly tend to bring the lecture forward to that category of population as well, and I hardly wait to begin that level of lecturing, which I would call gaining a real office, of course. We're still here on introductory levels. Also, they continue to call this one-person work. Yes, for sure, but it is above all one perspective delivered, and no one is prohibiting you of delivering your own, by the way. I should prevent myself from bringing my work in form of boxing match. Yet I wouldn't call it exactly as of such. After all, who is older here? If I exist of my own house, there is only one person I introduce today, myself. Here, therefore, history become absolute, and so territories and houses as well, in terms in which we have not been taking enough, we have not been talking enough so far. Finding 13. Jesus' bloodline based on blue blood platform used as a centerpiece for economy, where Mother Mary versus Mary Magdalene symbolizing here the entire duality, especially in Europe, of North versus Mediterranean, still ongoing exactly same political issues when it comes to human rights, but especially when in question direction in which Europe should be moving today. Middle East also exploits the notion of two fathers or two crossed cultures, delivering the concept of lost identity or notion of kids without clear national identity, developing gradually into story of Rome, being very clear evidence that none of the empires of relatively recent times would be emerging as falling from the sky. That simply is not the case here. I notice Jesus as very direct embodiment of the previous tribunal habits of sacrificing human, and I believe that that is the price certain extremism have been asked to pay. I always use here the reference to Bill Gates. It helps to understand what's going on here, not in the face of the person itself exactly, but just the name that withhold in itself a reference. I believe that that extremism is still of Middle East. That is still territory, I believe, where creatures go to feel high, clearly continuing to be well hidden into religion. On the other side of that coin, I would notice clear traces of conceptual thinking on planetary levels, yet with emergence of tendency to develop large scale of protocol of manipulating masses, without obligation to deliver strict leadership principles, but rather allowing more gray areas in the way how planet is going to be managed. That also has to change. That also has not changed that far to present days. Again, is that going to be stage where a human managed to move away from its past and walk forward towards becoming a human, or we still have that exact precise problem, speaking of humanity, on mainstream stage today as I speak? I believe also that we talk here about expectations, certain territories to be kept in their vile stages, compromised in such levels so they would never stand up again to make history on this planet. We certainly talk about conflict with power holders of the region in that exact time where one larger empire ceased to exist, being the Macedonian kingdom, and another starting to emerge, being the Roman Empire. I will also notice here, with emergence of religion, therefore, or what previously would be much more closely associated to human dimension and functioning of human, became all of a sudden split to God or sky level of thinking and earth for ground levels of thinking. Here intelligence all of a sudden became cupped by untouchable and abstract God and his will above any other reason. Yet religion itself was made out of ground level people. Basically, we talk here about general population, similarly as how it happened in socialism. Just in last century, taking over ground from intelligence and saying we are the power and it's going to be our way. That is where today I bring the text rather than a weapon, because this conversation will finally need to happen. This conversation will finally need to be brought on the daylight on this planet, and these people will finally need to explain themselves here on the road towards human or not at all. I'm going to also notice here sky versus earth dimension becoming all of a sudden in very formal way concept used in reference to our creation, yet withholding the element of very predatory beginnings, authoritative in form of real knowledge of upper levels, as it is case with Buddhism, and that situation today with our creation require confrontation and require readjustment. It has become too much political, too much politicized, too much about differences, and too much confronting online of differences, but very little about speaking up as a planet and speaking up as a wisdom. Concept of Adam and Eve playing very strongly on levels of white and black baby as ongoing scheme for human trafficking, very much under a religious spell, and what they have taken as hostages at that particular time being the imperial kids, that is a reference to principal imperial bloodline. And that is what makes the biggest secret this planet is still hiding and still driving very much on it, marching as hypnotized conspirators rather than regular population on regular planet. This event makes this planet nothing of regular but stupid and unmoral to the extent that the world not deserve to the extent that would not deserve even mercy. Let aside help. You will understand now why I am determined to do my marching and not that much pay attention to your opinion, as this is about my rights. X point, Principle 15. X point of mixed marriages as point of cultural pretend for nations to use kids that they can call less of their own and for purpose of launching destructive actions against their own other parent. I find this devastating from my perspective of being a mother and finding giving birth to a baby as the biggest magic and miracle of the entire universe and the entire existence, just to find out that such miracle, such magic on this planet has been treated as it is nothing, as it means nothing, because clearly to some people it means nothing. But can anyone on this planet deploy themselves in this respect of what is the magic of this planet? Are we not going to understand once forever what that is and spell and write on the sky if we need to? What is the most sacred event on this planet? And when I look at that icon of Mother Mary and Jesus, I wonder, was it not at certain point of historic time that someone actually said exactly this? So it has become shown to the people out there what is the biggest miracle and the biggest magic of this universe. So basically, mixed marriages, and I will highlight here especially again imperial kids therefore, and main imperial bloodlines used for the other side of the coin activities, for creating future leaders and people of influence. I will enclose in this category employ the method of extreme conflict among neighbors, where building a planet in circular notions would go in layers plus minus, positive, negative, to create permanent setting for permanent antagonism. Principle 16. Concept of Eve versus Cinderella platform. Today the entire platform is most happy to categorize it as Pleiades, although in substance I'm going to find that being W of Shia population of Iran, becoming increasingly the best-selling product and certainly making very rich certain families in Saudi Arabia. Initially, I covered this issue with the concept of imperial kids. Today, this is stepping up away from the principal bloodlines. It became larger protocol. It became associated to the entire population, as the purpose is today moving towards the promotional activities as it is marketing, which to great extent became prevailing industry of the present times. I will notice yet that this population still expect to build some kind of political exceptionalism as well on ground of arguing of being mistreated where I bring here the Cinderella Protocol, therefore, as its own phenomenon of this kind of population, trying to blame it all to someone else and building out of such positioning of complaining versus the other side, which then became disqualified as bad characters and became disadvantaged in some rather permanent setting. If it is to be followed the situation in England, for example. Here I found the concept of today prevailing white army in Russia, or let's say after Second World War to recent times, making in the years after the war movies of character Anna Karenina, very relevant actually, or Madame Bovary, for example, continuing certainly to bring aristocratic remains of population under the feet, while the alleged winner was Red Army. With Boris Yeltsin, certainly things getting switched. Here I'm not going to criticize. I rather find strange if that would not be understood as such, because Russia continued to be source for a wide population of the entire Western civilization. Let's not get into that arguing what would be the facts versus discussing politics here. If there is that we talk about mixed bloodlines, that should be respected. If territory exists here with three-colored flag, that should be respected. That is what I'm talking about here. We are talking about humans here, not about potatoes, tomatoes, or capsicums. We're talking about human beings, and human beings cannot be treated as a bag of potatoes or similar vegetables or whatever. We are shared. Or whatever. We are determined here to manage the humanity. And I can see that's not happening yet. Considering the fact that today a woman has been completely pushed out of the politics and completely forgotten about, I'm not going to be surprised where we are today as a civilization. Nothing is going to surprise me here. Tell me what percentage of your life you really would put in hands of the man. Let's get real here. Let's get serious here. Let's get a look what we have left here and to whom we have left the entire planet, in whose hands. Would you leave your kids under the care of and supervision of their fathers without your supervision? Look where it is, our planet. We have left the planet unattended. We have left this planet in hands of hilarious subjects that would always have problem to bring themselves in proper order, and that would always need to bring here on attention here, therefore, what we need to deal with in the present times in real terms when it comes to management of this planet. Principle 17, my theory of creation of life as foundation for contemporary political science, which should be accepting the position that our human is therefore creation of blast of creative energy, some radioactive blast that has been creating the animals, and the same radioactive blast that has been creating the animals and the plants and the humans, not as work of man, but as work of energy, as matter of presence, accordingly initially radioactive presence and recognizable stamp of identity. My theory introduces identity as absolute category and in terms of our global identity-driven cultural platform consequently. When, however, we reach the human in specific identity deploy, we would be talking about character, that I feel very determined to defend here today in fear of its extinction. To find out that it appears rather in pieces, in faces of various cultures, it creates the sentiment as I need to gather today these pieces, therefore the cultures, in order to reach that character I recognize I face to this planet. It makes me rather to laugh when I think on the fact that there is actually a monument-like engraved face on Mars. Yet I never felt Martian that much. Somehow I always thought of Martians as more aggressive and troubled and confusing, something as in Mad Max movies, for example. And I always somehow find myself on the other side of that equation. But then there we are, stuck with that face, and there I am now speaking of that face, and maybe it is that we still talk about principal imperial bloodlines, which rather would exist as some kind of universal phenomenon. Anyway, we are still, after all, on the same solar system, so we don't really know how much our empires are moving not just over the various territories of the planet, but over the solar system as well, with all of the structures and layers present in the civilizations as this one today. I would also indicate that none of such parts of identity can have its voice above other, neither in name of the entire globe, while being just part of it. It confirms my theory of identity already, but also indicates the shape of natural order on this planet that should today be answer for our governance, especially having in mind very tangled conditions of our socio-political and cultural relationships today and real search for arbitrage. Principle 18. How much we will reach here the Cyrano de Bergerac syndrome will indicate how much Serbia of my kind was there all of the time to present days, as nothing much really changed here. Yet these worlds are testimony on their own what makes this legal case the easier of all known. His big nose, by the way, symbolizes well someone being dragged for their noses, being actually famous people saying for being made fool of. Not literally, although people never seek imagination, but in terms of the way how political affairs out there continue to be built. Principle 19. Dragged as a lizard. The notion of lizard has been used as philosophical reference to someone with broken spine and left behind, so exists more as a tail than as a head. Increasingly present promotion of lizard as extraterrestrial force is therefore nothing else but very serious act of manipulation of our realizations and actual knowledge. We have a long way ahead of us to recover from such comprehensive system of lies and manipulations thrown upon humanity for a longer period of time. Principle 20. The concept of drugs, used in reference to dragging people indefinitely into devaluation of their life, right to pursue of life, and the way in the way to be thrown on margins of the society. It is very well employed in socialism in terms of creating long line of people in waiting. There is a reminds me just that there is a gem brand in New Zealand under the name Waitis, pointed out to me by a person that looked as a copy of Lawrence of Arabia, character of which I was fan, as many of other people, other normal people, when in question charismatic person. And I'm still very sorry for not having opportunity for conversation. I guess I was given a stage instead. Therefore, waiting is socialism for various administrative purposes profoundly present in that system, including the medical system, in conditions where education was free and there was, I'm very sure, enough people that would have been employable in various ambulances. It always looked as we are in some kind of Second World War scene, overplayed, overpopulated by people as we are hiding from some attack from some notorious Germans.